move to the panel. I'm very happy to have with me Laurent Coulot, CEO of Insolight, Andrea Canino, head of the innovation lab of Enel Green Power, one of the world's largest developers of PV, and also a light tower of solar cell module production in Europe. We have with us once again Tobias from Fraunhofer, and then joins us also Radovan Kopecek, co-founder of ISC Konstanz. Okay, so we want to discuss what's the rationale for made in Europe concepts is, and yeah, simply we have different perspective here, which is very nice. We have a startup, a manufacturer, and EPC, and two leading research institutes. And so let's simply discuss where we are here in Europe and where we can go. So let's start. So first of all, so why do we need actually strong solar R&D in Europe? I think if we look at what's going on in the world, our module cell production these days rather small. We have a very strong and massive R&D sector in Europe. So maybe everyone, first statement, why R&D for solar is needed in Europe. Who wants to start? Rado, maybe?
Okay, thank you, Michael, for the introduction and also for organizing this. I mean, we have to distinguish solar R&D. It also can be application of PV system, bifaciality, and so on. But I think you were more targeting the PV production, so R&D on PV production, and it's quite clear why we need it, because we want to have a sustainable energy transition, and then local production is key. This is what we realized, and then I mean we see in the R&D centers that are moving more towards the back end, but I think we will need also the front end in future.
No?
No, absolutely. I think it's strategic for Europe and the world continent to have PV in the next century. It's one of the major industry of the 21st century for sure. And yeah, we need to be strong on that. It's for the future, for jobs, and also for the supply of energy in Europe and the control of it. So it's super important to start from R&D to products. And yes, I think it's a major challenge for the world continent.
Okay, Tobias?
Well, yes, I mean, I would also say that we need PV, since what we learned about the COVID, that we should also have some cell producing in Germany and Europe, of course. And you know, we have this Green Deal up from Ursula von der Leyen. And we have this Paris Agreement. So with these two things, we really need to focus on renewable energies, and solar is one major player there. So solar, in my opinion, is a no-brainer for Europe to step into.
Okay, Andrea, you are deploying massive amounts of solar, so
yes,
Enel.
Well, yes, what we think is that Europe must maintain an independence from the all point of view. So the R&D is one of the key to maintain the strategically the leadership in technology development. So to have a strong R&D in photovoltaics in Europe, it's very, very important to maintain our leadership in the energetic independence.
Okay, so let's talk about how much leadership we actually have. So what's the status of of R&D. We've seen some projects here today, and but when you look at from your experience, so what is the current focus? And also, if we look, Rado, as you mentioned, that also beyond manufacturing. So, what are we doing at the moment in Europe in terms of R&D status? And then I think let's first map that, and beyond that, I would like to, of course, then come to what should we maybe do, and how can we benchmark ourselves. But first of all, so where are we now, maybe? Well, please, yeah, whoever, just say if someone wants to say something, so that I don't always have to go around.
Okay, so you already mentioned it. There are different fields, and I think that still in every field, Europe is leading, or at least yeah, quite well positioned. So, for example, if it comes to bifaciality, applying of bifacial modules, and looking at failures in your systems and so on, but also still, I would say we are still leading in development of silicon solar cells, and what we are lacking only is, let's say, the knowledge still of mass production, and this is what we can learn from our Asian colleagues still. I think I answered already your second question, but it's difficult to answer the first without the second. So on R&D, on devices, modules, systems, I think Europe is still leading, but we need cell production now in Europe. That's my view.
Anyone else?
Yes, and if I may add on top of that, I think it's also important to look at new deployments use case if you want to go fast for the energy transition. Applications such as the IPV or agrivoltaics, for instance, that are still nascent, could open up lots of surfaces for PV, and may need new solutions that are not yet available in mass production. And that's an opportunity for R&D and launching new products, I believe.
Right.
Yeah, I think also that when you look on the type of R&D we have in Europe and compared to China, their R&D are basically done in the manufacturers on site there. And for this, when you have a certain technology, like let's say Perk or Topcon, and you run it over and over and over, millions of cell producing, it's a different style to optimize there. So our research here in Europe, we are rather coming up with those technologies, Perk, Topcon, and then we can improve it to a certain point and lab. But then the final improvements, like the gradual gains we see, the record efficiencies, they only can be achieved by doing it over and over and over. So this is a different type of research here compared when you compare China with Europe. So therefore, at the moment, still we should focus on new concepts like what is beyond Topcon and heterojunction and so on. But coming now, we see that manufacturers are coming back to Europe. Lots of things going on there. So we might have a shift there as well, more closer to really optimizing the product, looking into the diffusion, looking into metallization, really fine-tuning everything. So at the moment, this is still different to R&D in China and Europe.
Andrea, please.
If I can add something, it's I perfectly agree with other people here. And also one of the key points is the development of all the part of the automation of production. So to be to have a more automated production, to reach the higher efficiency level in mass production, with the optimization of the production itself without any major issue during the cell production, and to avoid to waste materials and so on. And also the part related to the circular economy point. So the design of PV modules, PV cells, and PV plant in general to be more environment friendly.
But I just want to stay at the mapping quickly. So because I think I'm also interested a little bit in the value chain, because if we look at each different step actually we need. So I think if we wanted to source, and I think now I'm going a bit to manufacturing, but of course behind that is also research, we couldn't actually get everything we need today, at least, and especially not at competitive cost. As if I look at encapsulation, for example, also. So I think there are some, we have one wafer manufacturer, we have one ingot manufacturer in Europe, rather small. And how is this reflected actually also in research, what's behind that? So I think in cell manufacturing is now coming back. Enel has been spearheading that. Meyer Burger is now coming. I think there are also others interested. At Solar Power Europe, we have this solar manufacturing accelerator where a couple of projects are really looking into manufacturers. But how is the research all behind that? Because of course the Chinese companies also have a lot of research. I think it's a bit different than with us in Europe, taking place at the companies, right? It's amazing when you see at Longji's R&D budget how much money is flowing in that according to their balance sheets. But how are we there? Just briefly on that actually, or where do we have to have focus a little bit more, and where are our weaknesses also?
Well, if I can
no, sorry.
Yeah, first please.
Just go ahead.
Right.
Andrea, go ahead.
So we faced this problem because actually to find very good materials in Europe, it's produced in Europe, it's a little bit complicated. So probably there is a limitation from this point of view, and probably we should go towards a change, an increase of supplier in Europe. We need to facilitate the born of a new producer of silicon ingots, of encapsulant glasses and so on, because actually all the materials they have a very good quality and are quite cheap produced and purchased in China. So we need a strong effort, a strong common effort to address not only the R&D, that is the added value, but also to produce the materials here in Europe to be totally independent, because in this way, actually, up to now, we are not actually totally independent.
Anyone else?
And I guess this comes along with higher prices, at least in the beginning. I mean, at the moment, we are not fully competitive. And so there must be a political agenda aligned with that we get a certain support that we are actually producing solar cells or modules on a higher cost base than the Chinas can. And since we are about to ramping up things here, we cannot compete, at least in the beginning, in the cost structures the Chinese have. So there must be a certain political environment where we say, okay, we want to have this here, and we want to protect our manufacturers here, because by fully competing on a economical scale, also market scale, it's difficult to compete with the Chinese. Yeah.
But on what do we want to look at actually? So because of course at the moment we have Perk, and of course it's coming closer to its efficiency limits, but still of course the manufacturers want to kind of continue expanding as long as they can before they have to change their their equipment. And then the question is, of course, do we go to Topcon, where it's easier, because I think you just have to add a few different machinery, or if you change to a completely different technology to HJT. So, but do we want to actually still spend efforts and money on Perk, or shall we simply say that's completely over, and shall we rather look into heterojunction and Topcon, or shall we even look one step behind, because we're one area where we're really leading is for sure perovskites. I think China is also coming, but I think they are not yet there. And if we look at perovskite tandems, I think that's where we for sure still have a lead. So maybe to everyone.
Yes.
Rado?
I think we have a different opinion on this, and my opinion is that we need a healthy ecosystem of cell technologies, and of course Perk is coming to its limits, and people are saying we lost the Perk game against China. This is not my opinion, because I think we can still do it a bit better, and also we have to, in order to stimulate the supply chain. You mentioned it, we still do not have so many wafer producers left, glass producers, and so on. And in order to stimulate the supply chain, we need all the announced activities, and then Greenland is going Perk. However, we need, let's say, not only Perk technology. Perk goes only with let's say, an idea already how to upgrade to Topcon. So we must more or less have plans how to upgrade the Perk technologies, and this is what all the manufacturers are already having in mind, that Perk is let's say the technology that will stimulate the supply chain, but we already have to go to N-type. But I think this is also left for this will be the discussion of tomorrow, right?
Yeah, sure. But I think so. But I'm questioning rather, or asking the question: where should we spend also research money on? So, and is still on Perk? So that was a question, or only to the more advanced or the really far advanced?
Well, if I may, I think. Yeah. If we talk about Perk, of course, the Chinese manufacturers are extremely competitive, but we need to keep in mind the cost comes from the scale. Some of them are above 10 gigawatts annually. So, of course, if you produce them in Europe at smaller volumes, 10 times lower, you will never be competitive on cost. And that's the, I think on those technologies, that's the rule of the game, is to also scale the production and maybe have an union in Europe to really scale the volume, because the cost will decrease. I would say automatically, and also getting government support is another obvious area of difference. For new technologies, a bit different, because the way the manufacturers innovate, I think it was said, the big ones, they do step by step, so they will never do something too disruptive at once. And maybe that's an opportunity for Europe, is indeed to try things that are a bit more out of the box, let's say, in parallel of the existing production, and try to launch new production lines with new products that are not yet even on the map of the big players in Asia. So I think it's a mix of both at the end.
Okay. Andrea, I think so. You're focusing on HJT with Enel, but of course, I think the research lab is also looking at a lot of things. So where would you want to see the focus on R&D funding in Europe?
From our point of view, we are thinking that on the next generation of solar cells. So actually, we are working also on perovskite and tandem solar cells, because of course, as you said, we are facing the next generation, but we need also to think to the next generation, let me say. So in a couple of years, heterojunction would be, according to me, one of the most diffused new technologies, not at least in terms of numbers, but for sure in terms of R&D. the diffusion of projects. But we need also to invest in the new generation of technology. I think that the best should be to find an approach similar to the extraterrestrial application with double or triple junction to maximize the energy production, considering especially in Europe the lack of space, of large spaces to install quite a big photovoltaic plant. So I think that the next generation, in the next 10 years, we need to focus also on low cost double and triple junction solution with a very, very high efficiency, of course.
Okay, I think someone has a bird in his background, so I suggest everyone else who's not speaking goes on mute and unmute when you're not talking. But okay, then, okay, then let's, so I think there are different opinions. Rado thinks, although he's working, of course, a lot on IBC, that he still believes that that Perk should also still be a major or some focus. And I understand also that ISFH is also working, for example, on the next generation of Perk. I think there is still some potential, and we really have some good knowledge here in Europe. The question here is also, are we happy actually? We're seeing that on the demand side, it's really strongly growing. So last year we had 18 gigawatt of new installations in Europe, or in the EU only, despite the pandemic. That was more than in any other generation technology, from gas, coal, nuclear to wind and all the others. So solar was the biggest. We're growing. So at Solar Power Europe, we're assuming that the market will be 35 gigawatt in 2024. So it's really going, almost doubling actually in 3.5 years or so. And do we see actually that the solar R&D funding goes in line with that? So are we